Nigel! Here, little buddy! You okay, Nigel?
It seems like over the next couple of days we are going to be experiencing all of the seasons. It was gorgeous out this morning, and this evening we're supposed to be getting winds up to 50 miles an hour. Hopefully this will be the last test for Nigel's little tent. Thankfully this morning I was thinking ahead, so I did bring down quite a bit of hay for this evening.
Tiny! Tiny! You okay? Tiny!
When it gets really windy like this, both Frisco and Prim prefer to stand outside. It can get very dusty in the barn, so while I'm filling up all of the hay bags for this evening, I did turn on my giant fan. Hopefully this will allow me to not get any dust and debris in my eyeballs.
Zig! Ziggo!
With all of the sunshine from this morning, it looks like the small arena and also the bigger arena are pretty dry. With more sunshine on the horizon in the next week or so, it will be the perfect time for me to drag everything out and hopefully prepare for when I'm ready to start working these guys. My neck is feeling better every day, and I'm finally starting to be able to lift things up, so I've been cleaning out the stalls more. Ziggy and Scarlett have been a little bit at odds lately. Ziggy just chases her around a lot more than he usually has. It's been nice to put everybody in their stalls at night. This evening I do have to put Pearl in possibly, so I need to clean her stall out.
Tiny! Hey, girl.
With this crazy wind, Tiny hasn't been out of the barn very much today. She's got a lot to say about my little break, but I'll get back to work soon.
Hey, we gotta get working, girl.
It is still pretty windy out. It might get a little bit more windy before the day is done, so I'm just keeping an eye on my tarp just to make sure it stays where it is supposed to. Even though it looks like Tiny hasn't been outside very much today, she has started to do more thorough gopher patrols around the barn. There are a few little ground squirrels that I can hear squeaking every once in a while underneath the winter hay pile, so she has been on high alert. There are still a few tiny little holes she can slip down in.
Tiny!
I like to keep some of this hay for the summer, but it looks like I might be out sooner rather than later. When it is really windy like this, it doesn't make any sense to feed these horses all alfalfa because it simply just blows away. I've gotten a bunch of hay bags made up for tonight for the horses outside with grass hay and a little bit of alfalfa in it.
Tiny!
After Tiny made her round, she went back up into the pile to take a little nap. All of this loose stuff is going to go in Pearl's feeder. She's probably going to stay out most of the evening, and then as the weather starts getting worse, I'll just bring her in.
Zig!
As usual, Ziggy got himself completely covered in mud during the day. When I bring him in this evening, he'll get brushed and vacuumed, and he will be as clean as I can possibly get him. With the wind really zipping around, it has been a little bit tricky for me to do my chores. I accidentally left the water running. Typically, I can hear all the waters when they're on, but with all of this wind, it makes it really difficult. Frisco and Nigel's water has been overflowing for more time than I care to admit.
Oh, Nigel! Nigel!
Nigel has been spending a lot of his time on his little hay bale I have made up for him. I've been feeding him regular hay instead of giving him soaked feed most of the winter, and he seems to be able to eat it perfect. I'll be really interested to see how his teeth look this year when the dentist comes. Nigel has the most missing teeth, and he also has an old fracture that makes his mouth grow a little bit wonky.
Hey, Zig.
Hey, buddy. Every morning and evening when I brush these horses, a bunch of their winter coat is coming out. I really like to wait until it is above freezing overnight pretty consistently before I actually start shedding the horses out. Regular brushing gets a lot of the hair out, but actually shedding them with a purpose does do a pretty good job of removing all of their winter coat. After looking at the forecast, in the next 10 days, we do have 2 tiny little snowstorms overnight, and then the rest of the spring is looking pretty good.
Zig, go in, buddy.
I took 2 large loads of dried up manure from Pearl's pen. Over the winter, I did put out quite a bit of straw for her to lay down in, and that has been kind of a struggle to get up. It looks like a few more days of bright sunshine and I will have my round pen back.
Hey, girly. Pearly girly.
The bath that Pearl got definitely helped her. She is still a little bit on the itchy side, and she does have quite a bit of dry skin. I've been struggling to get this girl the right balance of omegas. She is a little bit of a picky eater. One of you guys did send her some special flax seeds in the mail, so I'm going to try those out and hopefully that'll do the trick. I so appreciate it when I get stuff in the mail from you guys, but a lot of times there's no notes or anything with it. So thank you so much to whoever sent that for Pearl. I have high hopes that that is going to really help her get a little bit more comfortable. Once the weather is a little bit nicer, if she is still really itchy, I think I'm going to go ahead and body clip her just so I can keep her very clean and treat her skin if it needs to be treated. I'm kind of waiting to see what the weather is going to do tonight. It is very dry out here, so I think I'm going to drag this smaller arena once I get some more manure cleaned up. I'm going to get the horses fed their dinner and then probably work the large arena as well.
Hey, Whip. Buddy. Hey, stud man. No snacks in here, buddy. Come on, bud.
Both the small and the large arena are dragging up pretty nice. I typically do remove all of the manure from the winter, but this year I'm going to try mixing it in and see if that helps the footing a little bit.
Ugh.
The footing that is in the arenas is very hard. It is more like a crusher fine with some sand in it. So it could definitely use some organic material mixed in just to make it a little bit more fluffy.
Pearl!
I was going to bring Pearl in, but she seems totally fine outside, so I'm going to bring her in very last this evening if it does look like it's going to storm.
Come on! Stewie! Stewie! Come on! Shh. Guys! Hey! Go, Stewie! Shh. Bunch of turds.
These boys were definitely being a thorn in my side this evening. It was maybe a little bit too sloppy to drag. The area where I typically feed these horses is getting very dry, and I just wanted to even it out a little bit. After getting almost stuck numerous times, I was finally able to drag a good portion of their dry lot. It was a little bit dicey getting out. The boys thankfully were distracted by their dinner. I did end up putting Scarlet, Ziggy, and Miss Pearl in for the night, and it was a good thing too because we did end up getting a little bit of surprise snow. The next morning there was a brand new blanket of snow over the entire place. It's pretty warm out and this stuff is very heavy, so it should melt relatively quickly today.
Zig! Hey, Ziggo. Hey, buddy.
Besides a few little green areas still left on Zig, I have been able to keep him pretty clean. He's been losing so much hair lately, he's actually been clogging up my vacuum.
Zig.
So it won't be long until I'm able to shed him out for the season. Another good sign that spring is on the way is that I've been seeing a lot more geese migrating around. The better Pearl starts feeling, the more shenanigans she seems to be causing. The first thing I did when I got here this morning was turn her out. She was very upset to be in her stall.
Pearl. Meow.
It looks like she's busy giving me the silent treatment this morning. When I put her back in her round pen, she actually loped around for a little bit, and I don't want to say she was bucking, but all of her feet were getting off of the ground.
Pearl.
Since she is so old, it doesn't take very long for her to run out of energy, and it looks like she's enjoying her breakfast.
What are you seeing, girl?
It seems this nicer weather is making Scarlet and Ziggy grow a little bit farther apart. I have a few different plans for the springtime, and one of them includes putting Frisco and Prim in with these two. Ziggy has gotten a little bit nasty to Scarlet, so I want her to be able to make some new friends. With a fresh coating of snow on the ground, all of my plans for this morning are ruined. I'm going to snuggle with Tiny for a little while, and then I think I'm going to head back to my house and do some house chores. By the time I make it back in the afternoon, a lot of the snow is starting to melt. There is even some pretty serious steam coming off of my older manure pile. There's really no way around it. This afternoon is going to be pretty sloppy. I hadn't planned on introducing Prim and Frisco to Scarlet and Ziggy yet, but with
Oh,
the
hey,
smaller
Tiny.
arena thawed
No,
out
no,
today,
no.
might be the perfect day to tackle that task.
Catch a gopher, girl. Zig, you okay, buddy? 2 girls is too many, buddy? Hey, old boy. Come here, Frisco Bill. Come on, old boy. Come here, old boy. Frisco Bill? Come here, old boy. They don't like you, Zig.
Every time I try and get Ziggy some new friends, it becomes more evident that he is clearly a horse that likes hanging out with people more than other horses.
Zigo.
He is a very sensitive old boy, and Prim only had to do a few little fake kicks in his direction, and that sent him right into the corner. Since I've had Scarlet, she hasn't been out with any other mares. I'm guessing the last mare she interacted with was her mother, which would have been quite a long time ago. Prim really hasn't been turned out with very many other horses since I've got her. She's been out with a few other young mares that I don't have anymore. But for the most part, she's spent a lot of her turnout time with Frisco. There was a little bit of excitement in the beginning, but nothing too terrible.
Sorry, Zig. Go on, Zig. It's okay, Ziggo.
Ziggy has met or has been turned out with all of the horses in here. He was turned out right next to Prim for the majority of the fall, so I don't know why they're not hanging out more. Scarlet and Prim have met each other over the fence line while they've been turned out as well.
Zig.
They really aren't picking on Ziggy, and if he would just walk over to them, I know they would be good friends. The only kind of wild card in this situation is Frisco Bill.
Hey, Mare.
Frisco has always been very protective of his girls, so when Ziggy got too close to Scarlet, he stepped in. I saw this poor little guy. He looked like he had really been through the ringer. He is soaking wet, so I'm wondering if some of their burrows have flooded with all of this surprise snow. This little guy seemed to not know exactly where he was and was running around a little bit on the frantic side. Tiny has been snuggled up in the barn, so it's not a surprise I'm seeing lots of gophers out this evening. I do have quite a bit of chores to do inside the barn. I've got to clean out all of the stalls and get dinner ready for the horses. These 4 are going to be turned out for a few hours this evening, and really, for except a little bit of excitement at the beginning, it has been pretty uneventful. I noticed that Frisco was making sure to stay in between his girls and Ziggy.
Zig. Zig.
I really hope these two boys can figure out how to get along. I was hoping that Frisco would eventually get tired of these two girls and he would pal up with Ziggy. Because Frisco is going to be 30 years old this year, it would be nice for him to continue to have his own space. I'm thinking that I might turn Scarlet and Ziggy out onto the smaller dry lot and little pasture, and then Frisco and Prim can join them just when they're turned out in the pasture. They'll have more room, and with all of the snacks to distract them, it might be a good compromise for these four. Once I get all of the dry lots and the run-in shed stripped out, I will be juggling around the horses a little bit. That should make it a little bit easier for me to get the greener ones worked in a more productive manner.
Stewie? You hungry?
While those four got to know each other a little bit better, I divvied up all of the dinner. Everybody seemed to be staying pretty calm. They looked actually quite a bit bored with each other.
Come on, boys.
It is so crazy how much sloppier everything is today than it was yesterday at this same time. This whole big arena was almost completely dry except a few little icy spots. After getting to know each other for a few hours, it was time to bring Frisco and Prim in for their dinner.
Bill, come on, old boy.
Ziggy and Scarlet are also going to go in for the night in case it snows again.
Hey, Prim. Zig. Prim.
Prim tried a little bit harder to go see Ziggy when I was ready to bring them in, and Frisco Bill made sure that he kept her over in his little area. Frisco definitely uses his cutting horse moves on his mares when they get out of line. Ziggy still really didn't want any trouble, so he just stood around and waited for the excitement to be over. I get a lot of questions about why people do not like to have a lot of mares in their mixed herds, and Prim is a good example of why. Most of the time she is just thinking about which horse she can make babies with, and it does create a lot of different herd dynamics. Once she starts getting worked this spring and summer, it should calm her down a little bit, but when you're introducing a new bunch of horses together, it does make it a little bit tricky. Once Frisco and Prim were out of the picture, Ziggy was fine to come back and hang out with his favorite girl. I think having some turnout time with other horses will benefit these two, but I don't think they need to be together all the time.
Phew. Hungry, Zig?
Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.